record. Okay, here we go. All right. Hey, friends.
Hi.
Hey, Stronger Together community. So I have with me today a very, very special friend. I have introduced her one other time, but it's been a while. So I'm really excited to reintroduce you, or maybe for the first time, to my dear friend, Shari Campa. So before I have her introduce myself, just a couple of housekeeping things. I'm sorry that the name on the screen reflects Savannah Benefield. She's another dear friend of mine that I'm using her Zoom account today. So just don't mind that. I am me. So just a quick lead in, Shari, share a little bit with you. And so we, as a community, we are a community of women that an online fitness and wellness community, but we are pursuing wellness from all aspects. So we have our challenge this summer, June and July. Our focus this summer has been self-discovery and self-care. So we've really had several conversations and really intended to set aside some intentional time to press into what self-care looks like for us, for each one of us individually. And I really challenged us as a community I've challenged the mindset. You know, it used to be that self-care is such a buzzword, but it used to be that you would think about it like a spa day mentality, a massage, a pedicure, a day away. And it absolutely is those things. It can be those things, but I've really challenged us to break that down to more of a micro level. And I know you and I have done some of that. We've talked about that a lot in some of our work together. And you've challenged me to what does that look like hour by hour and sometimes moment by moment. So I'm really, really excited to share Shari with you all and for what she is going to share with us. So Shari, I will turn it over to you. Will you introduce yourself? Maybe tell us about your family and about your work.
Absolutely. Thanks, Cassidy. It's such a privilege to be here with your community. I love the work that you do, and I love the way you approach it. It's such a holistic way of approaching wellness. I think we can fall into that kind of self-care, self-help, toxic positivity world. Certainly we can see that fill up our social media feeds in a way that can be really defeating. So I love the way that you are approaching and inviting your community into a larger conversation about what it really means to care for your whole person. Self-care is soul care is one of the things that I really am so passionate about, that we care for our entire soul, body, mind, soul, and spirit. So I love the work you do, and it's a privilege to meet your community virtually. My name is Shari Campa, as Cassidy said. I am a lot of things, though I don't think our roles defined us. I am a wife. I've been married for 28 years. I'm a mom to 4, 2 by marriage and 2 by birth. And I have got 3 grandkids and 2 great grandbabies as a result of our blended family. So blended families are their own journey that Cassidy and I co-journey along. So we've got a big brood, and my passion is reading, the beach. I love to travel. I've got deep friendships that mean everything to me. I find friendship to be a really integral part of my life and support system. And let's see, my work. I was trained. I went to school and got my master's degree about 12 years ago in spiritual formation and soul care. So that was kind of my on-ramp. How do we care well for our souls? And was licensed as a spiritual director, and kind of over the years have morphed that, expanded that a bit in my own growth and understanding about somatic work, somatic being the work that we do around our bodies. Came to understand both through my own journey and through supporting others along the way that so much of our life story is held in our bodies. And for me, in the faith tradition I came from, I kind of had the understanding that my body was bad. I didn't understand that my body was an ally. I kind of lived bifurcated, kind of lived a very intellectual life, not very tuned into my body actually as a resource that can be a way of communicating, inviting, telling me where I'm safe, where I'm invited to live more fully. So I've really expanded my practice to include somatic work. And then another area, which I think we may talk about later, I'm really passionate about internal family systems work. How do we learn to reparent ourselves? How do we learn to love all parts of ourselves, knowing that there aren't parts of us that are bad and good, but that we can befriend all of ourselves? So I do that whole work. I say that I create safe spaces for big questions, to just be a co-journeyer with people, to be an active listener, to hopefully ask good questions and offer tools and support along the way.
Yeah, and you've been such a gift to me. I've been meeting with Shari for, I don't know, a year and a half now, maybe. Yep. And you've been such a gift to me and challenged me in so many ways. You're also very well versed in Enneagram. And I say that because that's been part of our focus this summer. It's just such a wonderful tool to be able to, not only help people understand their unique wiring, but then a path, to growth and to understanding others and relationships. So, we've had book club this summer, and we've done Ian Morgan Cron's new book, The Story of You. Where we've looked at, where are some of those origin stories, and those ultimately those false, scripts or lies, or, even as I was in prayer a little bit we're doing a big workshop this weekend just for that, but those things that ultimately become strongholds, and keep us stuck. So would you share just a little bit about your Enneagram experience and how that plays in?
Absolutely. I am such a huge fan, as Cassidy is, of the Enneagram. And I think it got a little bit of a bad rap because it came kind of pop culture-ish. I actually studied the Enneagram the first time, probably 17 years ago, via Richard Rohr's work. I just found it to be so life transformational. It's not like a personality quiz. It really is this incredible tool of spiritual and personal discovery. And I find it to be personally revolutionary to understand who I am in my shortcomings, who I am in my weaknesses, and then what are the opportunities for growth. And the more people understand that, it's really a tool that creates great invitation and opportunity to growth. It's not about pigeonholing somebody that you're a type and here's the bad parts of your type. It's like, no, here's the really beautiful parts of human flourishing that can come as you really self-reflect and look. And I have also concurrently found it to be such a huge gift in my marriage. So to understand who I am, who my spouse is in relationship to me, to understand that maybe the way his bent and wiring that I might have wanted to villainize, that it gives me a lot of understanding and compassion for the way he is. And then for our adult kids, our whole family has done it. And I love Ian Morgan Cron's work. I think it's a fantastic on-ramp. The Road Back to You is such a great entry point. If anybody in your community hasn't dived into that, I think it's a really great starting point. I haven't even read his new book yet, so you're ahead of me. It's on my to be read list, but I just think it is such a powerful tool for growth and self-understanding, and in partnership, not just even in relationship, marriage relationship, in all of your friendships. It's something that comes up pretty much in any conversation in friendship I'm with, is how that's maybe impacting our decision-making, our worldview, all those kinds of things. I just think it's such a powerful insight into who we are and how we're wired.
Yeah, because really, it's in the context of our closest relationships where we bump into things, where stuff comes up, where we have an opportunity for offense or hurt or disappointment, vulnerability, conflict, all of those things that can that can cause us to shut down, or that can give us an opportunity for growth. And then it's also been such a helpful tool for me, and I know you too, with parenting and, and step parenting and, bonus parenting and mentoring too, ultimately, just understanding, those that we're trying to love and lead and point to Jesus, but trying to do that in a loving, connecting way. a way that, that they're going to get that, I guess that's been one of the biggest things for me is what works for me isn't necessarily going to be what works for somebody else. And so, yeah, that's awesome. All right, Shari, let's dive in. Definitely want to be respectful of your time today. How have you seen the impact of chronic stress play out over time? And how have you seen it impact, your clients, those that you work with, their overall health and wellness?
And I hope that we've all heard this a lot, but I just want to restate the obvious. Like, I don't think there's language yet. I don't think we have our minds around the impact of the global trauma that we are still in the middle of. Like, we keep, I think, wanting to say like, oh, it's over, but we're still very much in the middle of this ongoing global health crisis that has impact that I don't think that we'll maybe understand fully for years to come until we're looking back retrospectively. But to name it that, to say it has been a global trauma, and the impact of that on individuals and relationships is so extreme, on mental health, on exhaustion levels, on capacity. Like, everybody has been pushed to this place of running on empty. We're working at home. People were homeschooling kids. You're having to figure out how to manage your lives in this very locked down world. And the reality of it is, from a nervous system perspective, which I'm really passionate about, is anything traumatic puts our system into a fight, flight, or freeze mode. So going through this pandemic where the news is just like fear, 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 is putting our nervous system into this activated state that was just literally sustained for years. And now we're trying to figure out, how now do I go and live my life? And I think the impacts in terms of brain fog and exhaustion and physical illness are so real and so pervasive in a way that people keep wondering, like, what's the matter with me? I'm so deeply tired before I even start my day. I don't have the resources to do my life. And I think that we've gone off of our regular tanks onto our reserve tanks, and I think our reserve tanks are empty. So I think it's such an essential time to be incredibly gentle with ourselves, to be incredibly kind to ourselves, and to understand that our bodies are responding to all of that. And we're all now kind of trying to figure out, how do we move out into this new reality? So it's just, I see it. And one of the biggest things that I hear from my clients just across the board is just this extreme loneliness. People have felt so incredibly lonely. It's why communities like yours are so important, where people can have a sense of belonging, a place that someone's going to know if they're not connected, who's going to know if they're not engaging and active, because the loneliness factor, we're not meant to do this life alone. We're meant to do this in community, and the physical isolation became this outward manifestation, I think, of what people really were already feeling internally, but it became this external mirror for, gosh, life is lonely and hard, and there's an extreme amount of pain. And I think we're all really in that season of figuring out, how do we move forward? And they're big questions without easy answers.
Yeah. Okay. So let's dive in. I mean, I've certainly found myself in that place. Some of the things that you talked about, just being worn out and feeling like, my capacity is like, has been challenged, and you add that on top of the fact that as women, we already function with, I just love that analogy of, you think about your browser with, 50 tabs open all at one time. It's you're thinking about work, you're thinking about your family, you're thinking about your relationships, you're thinking about your grocery list, you're thinking about your, how you're going to fit in your workout. I mean, you name it. So compounded, with like you described it, the trauma that we've all been through over the last couple of years. So what are some practical things? What have you found to be helpful for people in this season? I think awareness is absolutely the first step. I think just exactly what you've done, what you do for me, pretty much every time we talk, but what you just shared, like just awareness of the impact of the last few years. So what do you recommend? What are some next steps to being able to check in with yourself, being able to, find some balance.
I think one of the really important places that I encourage women to start is look at where your time is going, because that overwhelm feeling, it is so impossible from that place to be able to even strategize your way out, because you just feel like you're constantly under an avalanche. So I think in the stream of awareness is first just to be aware of, where is all my time and energy going? What is it that's taking all of my time and energy? And in an observational way, not in a judgmental way, to just bring a spirit of curiosity and go, where is all my time going? Let me look at my life over the course of 7 days. Let me write down literally everything I'm doing so I can scan back and go, that's fascinating. I didn't realize I was spending this much time on social media, or this much time driving humans around, or this much time cooking because I didn't have a meal plan, and I've been to the grocery store 6 times this week because I didn't have time to plan. So I think zooming back and getting a bird's eye view of your life first is really important. And then I think another thing that I'm so big on is befriending your body, taking time. And again, start small. James Clear has this, who wrote Atomic Habits, which I avoided for a long time because of the name alone. I thought it was going to be this like, get out there and crush your goals. And it really isn't his work. He talks about how you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. So I think as we are aware of what can I put in place, small, tiny things that we can put in place. If you're in overwhelm, set an alarm 3 times a day to just check in with yourself for 2 minutes. Where am I? I'm going to just stop and I'm going to breathe into my body. I'm going to remind myself that I'm a whole person. I'm going to invite myself back into this person, into my breath. I think our breath is one of the most powerful ways. It's this ruah, the breath of God, the creative life force. Our breath is this really grounding thing that happens automatically. And in stress, it's often the thing that we stop doing. We breathe the way we have to survive, but we don't breathe to keep ourselves out of a stress state. We breathe and we're keeping ourselves in this very activated stress. So simple tools like just nose breathing, breathing in through your nose, out through your nose, taking some just gentle breaths. One of the things that I have my clients do, Cassidy can attest to this, at the beginning of every session, I just have people do like big breaths, like a big breath. Like audible sighs, because it allows your nervous system to go like, you're not being chased by a tiger right now. You are not in imminent danger. It's a way to quiet our bodies down and be able to say like, you're okay right now. And if you're in a situation, you're working at home or you're with your kids or wherever the situation might be, take your shoes off and go stand in the grass for 3 minutes. Put your face in the sun. And I'm talking about really simple things because I think when they get big, they become impossible. When we're overwhelmed and somebody's like, here's the 7 steps to crush your goals, it's just, I can't do that. I find that to be absolutely unattainable. So I think to do things that are grounding and orienting practices, like what are 5 things I can see with my eyes right now? I can see green trees. I can see pink flowers. I can see my puppy's dog on my bed. What are things I can hear with my, to ground back into our senses, because it's this way of just reorienting to calm ourselves down, to quiet ourselves down in a way that so everything that's coming at us doesn't feel so loud and so overwhelming in a way that feels crushing. So I don't know if that fully answers the question. Those are just like the really simple practices that I think. And then I think walking with others. I think a community like Cassidy's, having a spiritual director, a therapist, I think it's so important to have somebody who's just about seeing you. That is their only role in your life. They are there to see you, to support you, to help you, to contain you as you serve, support, help, and contain everybody else. Because as women, we just are often not great about asking for help. We don't know how to do it. We don't think we should do it. We think we're weak if we need it. So I think having a support network, even if it's just a best friend, to say like, can you help me in this season? I'm so overwhelmed and I just need some perspective on how to reorient myself in a way that sets me up for success.
Yeah, I love that so much. And in the physical side, it's really hard for me to get away from the basics. Like when our systems are experiencing stress like that, it actually causes, all kinds of distress, inflammation in our bodies and all kinds of things, that have you had enough water to drink? Like, do you need to go have a drink of water? Making sure you're getting plenty of fruits and vegetables, that are going to help, help your physical system, in addition to those soul care practices that you're talking about, trying to get enough rest. One that's been really big for me, when I get stressed and go into overdrive doer mode, is incorporating a discipline of pulling away, making myself sit down, sit still, maybe lay down, breathe, get into my body, maybe some, whether that's stretching or just finding a relaxation, yoga pose that I can kind of bring it back down, because we get into overdrive, so talk to us I know we've got just a few minutes left before we wrap up. Share, and this is not really a little bit, but a little bit about, you talked a little bit about your work with internal family systems and learning to parent ourselves. Can you encourage us a little bit with that? That's really been a new concept for me, that and it's taken, and hearing it a few different times to be able to, now I think about it, and when I feel myself, whether my anxiety is getting high or I'm triggered, I'm in overwhelm, or, I get to those really high stress places, I'm starting to learn to, okay, what do you need? And, what is it that's going on? So talk to us for just a couple minutes about what that might look like, and how one might be able to, show self-compassion, parent those hurting, triggered parts of ourselves.
Absolutely. And the reason I started studying internal family systems was because it was such a healing modality for me personally. It's a therapeutic model created by Richard Schwartz. He's got a great book called Greater Than the Sum of Your Parts, and also another one called No Bad Parts. This is his newest book. I think it's brilliant work, because what it names is that we are all parts. And I think you only have to go so far as to go like, am I parts? And to go like, oh, I hear that voice inside of me going like, yes, I'm parts. Like we don't have to reach very far to, one of the things I tell women all the time, I'm like, I don't know, do you have a mean manager? Do you have somebody inside of you that's like this constant harsh taskmaster that's like, you're not doing it right, and you're not doing enough, and you didn't show up well for your relationships, and you were not enough at your job? Like, that's your mean manager. That's the part of you that's in there that's like just constantly barraging you. Managers take on all different forms. They're not all mean, though. I don't think I've met a woman yet that doesn't have a mean manager inside of her. So the work of internal family systems is to look at those parts and be able to identify them, and to be able to go like, oh, I have this part that's really managerial and not very kind, or I have this young part that just kind of collapses, that just feels completely disempowered and powerless. And often, for those of you that are parents, our kids become these mirrors. Like, for example, let's say as women, maybe this is something you can relate to, even if you don't have children, if you have middle schoolers in your life, your middle schooler goes to school, somebody's really unkind to them, or your niece or your nephew, or some middle school child in your life, somebody is unkind to them, and you feel it so viscerally. Like, your reaction is not just on behalf of like this child. We feel it because we can all relate to what it is to be that awkward, perhaps out of place, our body's awkward, all those kinds of things. And it's this mirror to go like, oh, there's some work for me to do around this. There's something in this that I need to reparent the middle schooler in me who found a survival skill. These parts develop such beautiful skills for survival through all kinds of trauma, through all kinds of hardships. They're the things that bring us into adulthood, but then often they become the things that become limiting in adulthood. They're the things that keep us stuck in old ways of thinking. They're the things that keep us really reactive. Like, for example, in the case of a middle schooler, like I want to go like take down some like 12-year-old on behalf of my child, because that's a very childlike response. Versus a parental response would be to like, let's gain some understanding. Let's have some curiosity around this. And this will come up over and over again in our lives. Even if you don't have children, it may come up, somebody at work triggers you and you have such a visceral reaction. We call them outsized reactions. Like what you're feeling is bigger maybe than the situation warrants, which isn't an opportunity for shame. It's an opportunity to go, that was a really big reaction to something that perhaps didn't warrant that big of a reaction. So rather than being hard on yourself, to go like, I'm going to become an anthropologist. I'm going to become a curiosity seeker of my own life, to look at that and go like, what part of it within me needs some tenderness? What part needs some really kind care? What part of me needs a voice? And one of the things in trauma that we talk about, trauma is simply anything that's too much, too soon, or too fast. So there's nobody in this community that hasn't had trauma, whether it's big T trauma or little t trauma. We've all had trauma. We've all had things that are too much, too soon, or too fast. So the work of somatic work, the work of internal family systems, is how do we go in and kindly, lovingly, gently make space for those things to have a voice, to kind of work their way out literally and physically and metaphorically out of our body. So our highest self, our spiritual selves, our God created selves are the ones that are actually managing our lives, versus I've got all these fragmented, unhealthy parts that are going around. It's literally like having like a 7-year-old and a 10-year-old out trying to live your life, your very adult life with very adult responsibilities. And it's an opportunity to heal things, I think, in a really beautiful, holistic, integrative way, that we bring those things all together. And I do think it helps us show up as better parents. It helps us show up as better friends, as better coworkers, as better leaders. And it's a stretching concept at first. Yeah. But one, I think when we explore it, we really can learn to be keenly aware of like, oh, wow, that's a part of me. And there's a part of me that needs something right now.
Yeah, that was so challenging for me, that realization that, when my taskmaster is in full force or overdrive, that I'm actually coming across like that to my family, versus like I can be compassionate with myself. And when I'm willing to stop for a minute and do that work, then I can, exactly. That is so interesting. So, all right. So I'm sure y'all are super intrigued. Shari, if somebody wants, which I strongly encourage, to talk to you, to find you, to schedule with you, a session looks very much like this. We're talking, you're asking great questions. Where can they find you?
The best place to find me is on my website, sharicampa.com. You can schedule online there. You can do a free 30-minute information session just to say, hey, I'm curious. I want to know more, and to see if it's something that might be of service and a fit to you in this season. If you're not ready to schedule, you've just got some questions, there's an information contact on there, and you can message me and we can start a dialogue via email. And I would love to be of support to you. And one of the things I want to reiterate, Cassidy, that you were saying, one of the things that I feel is important to say is, I've just been in a season where my mom just passed away. So even if you're one who has really high capacity and you have had all the resources, we're going to hit bumps. We're going to hit these times where everything we know is going to kind of like fly off the wheels are going to come off. And to affirm what Cassidy said, because I feel like it's so important, and why what Cassidy does is so essential, is to get back to those basics. That when I was overwhelmed and when I really felt like I was decompressed, like I just could not handle what was going on, I had to go like truly, literally, have I had water? Have I moved my body today? Have I sent a text to a friend that says like, hey, I'm really struggling today? Like, to do those things, to not forsake the things that we know support us. And it's hard when you're in struggle. It's hard, but as women, and Cassidy and I have talked about this a lot, calendar yourself. Calendar yourself. You are your best and highest asset. And you should go into your calendar first. Your important relationships should go into your calendar first. Because what we usually do, we put ourselves in last. We leave ourselves like the leftovers, but then miraculously and unsurprisingly, there's no leftovers. So I would leave you with that bit of wisdom to say, calendar yourself, calendar the time with Cassidy's community or the personal training, however it is that you're availing yourself of her services, of some other support network. Because in getting it on the calendar, like I have an appointment with my therapist at 2:30 every Wednesday. It doesn't matter, rain, shine, where I am, whether I'm local or I'm traveling. That is a set time for me to know I am going to care for myself well. I'm going to get the support I need every week to know I'm doing that. I'm going to show up at CrossFit, even though I hate it, Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. I'm going to do it every week because I feel great after I've worked out. So I just so encourage you to take advantage of all the support. I know Cassie's got all different kinds of things available to you because they matter. They're the things that are going to set you up to be able to handle the overwhelming events of life, to be able to walk through a global pandemic, to be able to walk through hardship. Community and what she offers is just a beautiful support system and an asset that we as women need. We need to know we're not alone, and we've got a place to belong. So really encourage you to take advantage of all she offers.
Shari, you are a gift, and you just absolutely nailed it. We get to those places, and way too often those are the first things to go because we think we have to. And you're absolutely right. It may be counterintuitive, but it is essential. All right. I think you really nailed it. Any last thoughts before we wrap it up?
I don't think so. It's a gift, and I look forward to seeing some of your community in the World Wide Webs.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time, y'all. Shari's contact information. It's been so encouraging. I love you, friend, and I'll see you very soon.
You too. Okay.
All right. Take care. Thank you. Bye.